All right, welcome to the Explainer. So, I want you to step into a new role with me today. Let's put on the hat of a senior business analyst. In our line of work, we don't just look at IT as the folks you call when your laptop freezes up or the server crashes. No way. We look at how firms actually use IT as a massive strategic weapon to completely crush the competition. Today, we're opening up the analyst's toolkit to see exactly how technology dictates the winners and the losers out there in modern business. Let's get right into it. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the competitive battlefield. Second, 4 IT-driven strategies. Third, optimizing the value chain. Fourth, the virtual company model. And finally, digital business ecosystems. Section 1, the competitive battlefield. Understanding external pressures. Now, what's really fascinating to me about Porter's competitive forces model is how it completely flips our view of what a business is actually fighting against. You see the firm sitting right there in the middle? Most people assume a company only really sweats the circle right next to it, right? They're traditional direct competitors. But Porter shows us that a firm's fate is shaped by this complex, overlapping web of forces coming from literally every direction. As an analyst, this is absolutely crucial. Why? Because it dictates exactly where you need to spend your IT budget. You don't just throw money at tech and hope it works. You invest surgically to counter whichever of these specific forces is squeezing you the hardest. So, let's break down those 5 forces. You've got your traditional competitors, obviously, but then you have new market entrants trying to crash the party. Now, a killer information system can actually raise the barriers to entry here, making it super hard for those rookies to catch up. Then there's this constant tug of war for leverage with your customers and your suppliers. If you can lock in a supplier with a highly integrated digital supply chain, well, you just slash their bargaining power over you. But honestly, the force that keeps me up at night is the threat of substitute products. Digital substitutes can literally obliterate physical ones overnight. I mean, think about how iTunes just completely nuked the CD. It wasn't a slightly better CD, it was an entirely different technological substitute that wiped out an entire physical industry. Good information systems are exactly how firms monitor and defend against these specific threats. Moving on to Section 2, 4 IT-driven generic strategies. All right, so we've diagnosed the threats. Now, how do we counterattack? There are essentially 4 major playbooks a firm can run to handle market pressures, and IT is the engine for all of them. First up, cost leadership. This is using tech to become the absolute lowest cost producer. Classic example, Walmart. Their legendary IT-driven continuous replenishment system automatically pings suppliers the second a barcode is scanned at checkout. It keeps inventory razor-thin and lets them aggressively undercut everyone else. Second playbook is differentiation, using systems to create totally unique products. Third is market niche. This is all about deploying data to hyper-focus on a very specific target market. Shein is a total masterclass in this. They use wild algorithms to predict microtrends and cater to hyper-specific consumer demands in real time. They dominate a niche that traditional retailers can't even touch. And finally, customer and supplier intimacy. This means building tight digital linkages that make customers want to stick around and suppliers easier to work with. The takeaway here is that IT isn't an afterthought. It's the core driver of whatever survival strategy you choose. Section 3, optimizing the value chain. Okay, let's zoom inward and look under the hood of the business. This is the business value chain model. When I look at a company, I don't just see a brand. I see a sequence of very specific activities that add value to a product. Notice how the flow moves left to right. We go from inbound logistics, getting the raw materials in the door, through operations, sales, and eventually outbound service. At every single stop on that chain, we're asking, how can information systems squeeze more operational efficiency out of this step? How can we get tighter with our suppliers right here? By using benchmarking, which just means comparing our internal metrics against the absolute gold standard industry practices, we can pinpoint exactly where our IT dollars will trim the most fat and add the most value. But to really optimize this chain, we have to split these activities into 2 buckets. First, we have primary activities. These actually touch the product. Think automated warehousing, computer-controlled assembly lines, or digital checkout systems. Then we have support activities. These are the behind-the-scenes foundations making the primary stuff possible. Stuff like HR workforce planning or electronic scheduling. Here's the catch, though, and this is absolutely critical. A state-of-the-art robotic assembly line, a primary activity, is basically a giant, useless paperweight without the electronic scheduling system, a support activity, ensuring the raw materials and the operators are actually there on time. Information systems are the glue bridging these two, making both of them prime targets for optimization.
Section 4. The virtual company model.
Let's shift gears and look at the modern frontier. We are living in the age of the virtual company. This is a business that relies on digital networks to ally with other firms, build products, and distribute them without being tied down by traditional physical boundaries. As analysts, this is a radical paradigm shift. We're no longer just counting factories and office buildings. We're evaluating the strength of their agile networks. IT fundamentally flattens the org chart. Decision-making gets pushed down, middle management gets thinned out, and honestly, authority in these virtual companies is based way more on knowledge and competence than on your job title or having a corner office. To make this a bit more concrete, let's look at some absolute powerhouses running this model. GitHub is a perfect example, a massive platform where developers collaborate globally without ever being in the same room. Zoom literally erases physical distance for meetings. Shopify lets entrepreneurs spin up massive e-commerce empires without ever laying a single brick for a storefront. And Slack? It essentially replaces the entire physical office building with cloud-based messaging. These platforms scale to the moon without the traditional physical roadblocks. They are the ultimate flat, network-driven organizations. And finally, Section 5, Digital Business Ecosystems. For our last analytical framework, we need to zoom all the way out to the macro level. Check out the ecosystem strategic model. We're no longer just looking at one firm dodging local threats. We're looking at an entire interconnected ecosystem where totally different industries are deeply tangled together. In today's shared digital environment, the old industry walls are totally gone. Take healthcare, for instance. The future of healthcare is completely tied to the mobile device industry building wearable fitness trackers. Those trackers beam data to doctors in the healthcare sector, and all of that is processed and stored by massive cloud computing giants in the tech sector. They all live in the exact same ecosystem, meaning a disruption in one causes massive shockwaves across the others. Now, inside these giant ecosystems, companies basically fall into one of two camps. On one side, you have your keystone firms. These are the titans building the actual platform infrastructure. Think Microsoft or Facebook. They hold immense power because they create a space where millions of other businesses do the heavy lifting of attracting users, generating this massive self-sustaining network effect. On the flip side, you have the niche firms. These are the millions of individual companies using IT to get highly profitable inside those keystone platforms. A tiny business selling custom crafts on a Facebook shop, or a lone app developer making millions on an app store, those are niche firms brilliantly surfing the wave of the Keystone's ecosystem. So that brings us to the ultimate question I want you to think about as we close up the Analyst Toolkit today. Take a hard look at your own organization, or maybe the one you're aiming to work for. Are you building the platform as a keystone firm, actually dictating the rules of the ecosystem? Or are you brilliantly leveraging IT to thrive as a highly profitable niche player within someone else's platform? Honestly, figuring out exactly where you sit on that strategic chessboard is step one to actually winning the game. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and keep analyzing.